On April 1st, 2025, the U.S. House of Representatives came to a grinding halt, not because of a prank, but because of a fight over new parents' rights. A bipartisan push led by Republican Anna Paulina Luna and Democrat Brittany Peterson aimed to allow lawmakers on parental leave to vote by proxy. But when House GOP leaders tried to quietly block the proposal with a procedural trick, things backfired. All Democrats and 9 Republicans revolted, tanking the rule and stalling Speaker Mike Johnson's legislative agenda. The moment exposed a deep hypocrisy. While Republican leadership claims to be pro family, they opposed a simple measure that would help lawmakers care for their newborns and still serve their constituents. What started as a quiet procedural maneuver turned into a historic stand for working parents and a reminder that real family values require actions, not just slogans. If Congress won't support family leave for its own members, what hope do everyday working parents have? This story is from The Guardian by Chris Stein on April 1st, 2025. So, to the panelist with the mostest, and that didn't quite rhyme, but we're going to go with it anyway because I said, Kelley, because you have the fancy shirt. I want to ask you a question. Can you tell me what does this debate reveal about the difference between pro-family rhetoric and actual support for working parents?
You know, I when I first read it, it seemed really weird to me. Like it seems so trivial and stuff, you know, and here, I don't normally do long monologues, but bear with me on this one because I got a really salient point to make, and I did a lot of research, so you're gonna have to bear with me because I don't want all that research to go to waste. But so I was thinking, this seems really trivial. So why would they even think about doing something like this? It just doesn't seem worth it. So then I started thinking about, well, who in Congress is most likely to have a child that need to vote by proxy? And so I started checking it out and I started looking. And it turns out I figured women 46 or under. I don't know why I picked 46. I just did. That was the age I picked. So in the Senate, there's one person, just one person. It's Katie Britt of Alabama. She's 43. She's a Republican, but this is a House bill. So while that one vote in the Senate could make a big difference, this really was about the House. So I thought if we looked at the House members, it would be more representative of my point. See what I did there? There's 21 Democratic women. I'm going to say it again. 21 Democratic women in the House that are 46 years old or younger. There are 9 Republican women who are 46 or younger in the House. 21 to 9. I don't think I have to say anything else about the motivation for this bill. Nothing. I think it's pretty clear why they're trying to pass this, because maybe, just maybe, they might be able to pick up an extra vote in the future, or maybe 2 votes. Now, I did a lot of research, and one of the things I came across, and it's totally off point, but I love this. I ran across Sharice Davids. She's 44, Democrat from the Kansas 3rd District. She's from the Haskell Indian Nations, and she lists her profession as lawyer/mixed martial artist. And I read that, and all I could think of is she doesn't use "send me to Congress to pass some bills and kick some ass" as an election slogan. She's doing it all fucking wrong. So back to you, Cynthia.
Oh boy, I'm about to say, when you said lawyer/mixed martial artist, I was like, it's like my favorite lawmaker next to Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah, right. I was just saying, it's freaking awesome, right?
I don't know, like I was thinking about Fist of Fury, Crane style. Watch out there now. Okay,
Ninja warrior.
exactly. Okay, let's get serious. Rob, are you ready to be serious?
Yeah, but I don't know if they are. Like, well, that's the problem, is because the quote that I got from the article that we worked on was from Virginia Fox, and I'm going to read it. So it says, I know there's a new laptop class in America that seems to operate increasingly in a virtual space, but it's simply not a fact of life for most American workers, and I believe Congress should live by that standard. It's just tiring to constantly point out double standards, right? Because you want to not you want to ban abortions but then not help the kid after the fact. You want to maintain the standard of the typical American worker, and yet all of your job gives you privileges and you enjoy things that other people don't. Like it's never reciprocal, but oh boy howdy, they'll bring it up when it's convenient, right? So that's the thing that stuck out to me, because we know that we've already done things like this before with voting by proxy because of the COVID time, and turns out COVID was real, and then we needed to do things to adjust for that. They really don't want to do return to office, and yet they need to without trying to harm their own people, but empathetically considering other people is not a thing that they're typically going to do.
You know, I agree with you. And you know what? I was thinking also that, like, there's a lot of men who are of the age that their wives are going to have children. But then I started thinking, these are GOP men. They're not going to help their wives do anything with the kids.
Yeah, I guess, all three of you have hit on the point that, as Cynthia mentioned at the beginning of this segment, that the Republicans seem to always claim to be pro-family and pro-life, and then you look at it and it's like, okay, only when the baby is in the womb, and that's about it. That's it. Like, once the baby is born, like a newborn baby, it already loses their worth for the GOP's leadership, right? If you need any kind of leave, maternal leave, paternal leave, whatever, no, you're out of luck with them. If you need any kind of support for food, no, how dare you mooch off the government? If you need medical care, oh no, you better pay for your medical care. If you need your kid needs education, well, now let's do these vouchers so the rich people can get a better education. Yeah, no, pro-life, I will not cuss.
Well, one thing that I'm curious about, because I don't think I fully understood from part of it, is the banning of trying to vote by proxy specific to the pregnant women? Because you can't plan on life, right? So, what if, God forbid, one of the dudes gets struck by a car and he's gripping someone by their collar and says, "Go there and vote in my stead"? Would they then allow that? Is this only for pregnant women, or is it no voting by proxy at all? Because boy howdy, I do wish it were consistent.
Well, I think that's the problem. It's there is no consistency when it comes to the messaging that we get from the right. So even though that we hear, as the article mentioned, pro-family values, we don't see policies that support pro-family values from this area. And I just did a quick Google search, and Google AI named Gemini. I like to call him Jimmy, not to be confused with the host that comes to to the nonprofits, because this Jimmy is way better. As of April 9th, 2025, I love you, Jimmy. 13 states and the District of Columbia have enacted mandatory family leave programs, with some states having programs that are fully implemented and others with programs that are scheduled to begin later in the year. Out of those states are California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Maine, Massachusetts, Maryland, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Washington, and the District of Columbia. And I like to point out that I believe that all of these particular states are blue states. I was
going to say that.
Yeah, they're not red states. And you would think that if you want to have people who have the ability to become pregnant, then you would put it together social safety nets in order for them to be able to carry said pregnancy to term, and also sustain the the child after it's born. And unfortunately, we don't really see the policies, as I stated before, that happen after the fact. I remember we did a story, I want to say sometime last year, where there was a GOP state legislature. I want to say that she was from Oklahoma, but don't quote me. But she voted in order to keep the stringencies together for, less abortion access, but would rally against her Republican colleagues when they would vote things down like Medicaid expansion, free breakfast and lunch in public schools, and other child tax credits on the state level, and would say that, hey, you guys are, you're all for making sure that you can police, like, if and when a child is actually born into this world, but when it comes to what the government can do to take care of them, that's exactly what you're against. So what are you? Are you for family or are you not? And I'm going to leave that up to the audience to actually decide. But I want to ask this to all of your, and to get all of your feedback on this question. How do procedural rules, and I'm going to start with you, AJ, but how do procedural rules in Congress, no, I'm not even going to ask that. How about, what might it take to normalize flexible participation, that's the word, participation in government, especially for underrepresented voices like parents of young children?
What is it going to take? Well, I think it's going to take bipartisan support. It's going to take people to come to the middle and be like, hey, this is what we can do, like, together. Like, and I don't think that is going to happen necessarily. Based on what I understood from the article, the bigger issue wasn't necessarily the vote itself, like the whole voting by proxy, but rather that they were using these tricks and powers to completely derail the vote. I think that was the bigger issue here. It was just like, we are gonna vote party line, on party line, like, no matter what, like, whether they agreed with it or not. And it's like very frustrating.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of the using tricks instead of actually just, like, saying it with your chest that you don't support this, especially when it comes to some of the recent town halls that we have seen where, lawmakers, especially from red states, are being hammered by their constituency. So it's kind of like, it's almost like the Southern strategy. You can't say certain words overtly, so let's just do the practice under, and is it invertly? Overt? Kelley, help me out. What's
overt.
the word? What's the overt versus covert?
I'm thinking
covertly.
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 Okay.
I had to go back
Gotta
to my
use the
James.
dog whistles.
Yeah. The dog whistles. I had to go back into my James Bond modes from the 60s and 70s. But what say you to my question?
I was thinking that, and this is something that with any political issue, if you really want it to change, you don't change it politically. You go out and you change it socially. You make people think that this is something we need to change. And when you make enough people in society believe that this is something that needs to be changed, then the politicians will fall right in line with that because they want to get reelected. If the majority of people are saying this is what we want, they will follow the majority of the people, like, because they don't want to be out of a job, period. Right. So that's, if you want to change things, that's how you do it. You change it socially. You don't change it politically, because the politics will follow the society. I learned that with the war on drugs in the 80s. that was how I learned that lesson.
Just say no, right?
Yep, just say no. Yep.
What say you, Rob?
How do we get participation to be more flexible in the government? Honestly, we have to elect younger people. I just pulled it up. I Googled it really fast. And according to data.ipu.org, the average age of some of our congressmen is 65. Yep, 63.
Average?
The average
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
Which is in and
Virginia
of itself.
Fox. You mentioned Virginia Fox earlier. She's like 81 or 82, I think. She's really,
right. Well, and that in and of itself is not necessarily a problem because according to this also, Canada is actually older at 65. So it's going to be a societal thing like Kelley is saying as well. But specifically when we're talking about like getting them to better respect parents, there should be more people parent age. Like they're already claiming we should pay attention to the American standard because we should be align ourselves with the typical American. And yet we know that's not true. So if we forced them to actually do the thing that they preach, which would be literally keeping the people in Congress and in positions of power such that these situations do actually affect them, then they would be more cognizant of the things that are actually occurring. That's basically it. Just get them out. They're too old. They actually don't know.
Yeah, and as an anecdote, I remember when I was doing some activism work here in my city, one of the Democratic legislatures, I don't know if they're still there in office or not. They probably are, but yeah, actually he is. Danny Davis. Every time that like some people will go see him in his office in Chicago, they would complain because if the meeting was like at least about 5 or 6 minutes too long, he'd fall asleep on them. And and you know, and this is and like I said, as an anecdote, this is what I've heard. I never like seen this like documented or seen this in my personal observation. So but to that, Danny Davis is not a young man. And matter of fact, and I know that we had another congressperson that was like just a ward over or a district over who had to stop running because of their health. I believe that they had cancer. And when he stopped running, he was already like knocking on 80 himself, right? And when I read the article and when I listened to some of the arguments and the trickery that was being done to not allow parents to vote by proxy, they were just very antiquated and just saying that, hey, we got to use like tools that we used back, I don't know, like when Congress was first formed back in the 1700s. I mean, the late 1700s. And I'm just like, one of the things that we pride, and I use that loosely because of the times that we're in right now, when it comes to the Constitution, that is a living document. It can be changed with time because the wisdom of the founders was that time, technology, societal fields are going to change as time marches on, right? I almost start singing Seal. I won't do that. So if that is the case, then we need a document that rules the body of the states to be able to move along with it. And that has to also be, when it comes to legislatures as well, have to realize that we're living in a different time. We're also living in a time period where parents are older. I became a parent at 45, 44. Yeah. At 44 years old is when I became a parent. I had to count, like, how old is my kid now? So, and I know that like my life dealing with him, and it's just him, changed drastically. And it's even forcing me to be aware of what positions or how I even make my money going forward, because I have to realize that my priorities are different because of my child. And I would think that for those who have that sensibility that, hey, we have to be for the children, because they're our future, teach them well and let them lead the way, that we should also be of that mindset and also be flexible in order for parents to be able to still do their work and still be able to be for their kids at the same time. But unfortunately, this is just not the sentiment. So I know.
Yeah.
Go ahead with your point.
Well,
Rob.
I was going to say that, like, earlier we were talking a lot about how, like, they want to have the babies but then not support them after. And in some ways, like, we're potentially talking past them, which isn't fair. But in this specific case, it's even worse because it has to be about cruelty. Because if you talk to a person who's extremely pro-life and all they actually care about is making sure that they do get the birth, but they're not for government will for after the fact, like, that's a really dumb conversation, but at least you can have that conversation. And at that point, we acknowledge that they are in fact actually pro-birth. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a person who's still trying to do their damn job. So these are the people who are like, oh, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and then make sure you get your job done. Well, dude, my job right now is to cast a vote. And I can do that if you let me log in. And they go, oh, no, we can't let you do that. Well, why not? Well, because you're not actually here. Do you want me to do my job? Yes, I can do my job, and you acknowledge that it's me doing my job. Yes, then let me click a button. No, you have to do it here. So it must be about power and cruelty, because it actually isn't even about the kid. It's about doing your job, which they're trying to do in the first place. They are, in fact, acquiescing to the thing they want them to do, their job.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I have a sort of a question, because when I was doing the research for this, I was curious about how, if there is currently any type of law that allows parents to vote in this way, and so I was a little bit confused why they were introducing this bill for voting by proxy, because we already have vote by mail, and when I look at the requirements to vote by mail, it includes parents, and it says if you're giving birth within 3 weeks, 70 weeks before, months. Okay, I could be wrong on that. It was either 3 weeks or 3 months before and after you give birth, then you're able to vote by mail. So is there like a difference between these vote by mail, vote by proxy? Like, why were they so so stuck on this specific bill?
Presumably, it's because the vote by proxy is Senate and Congressional. Therefore, they are held to a higher standard as opposed to simply just sending in a mail ballot, which is probably the same point of view that they would say is like, "Ooh, this is a higher standard. Therefore, we need you to do this in person." And yet, I'm really glad you say that, because if we go with Miss Fox and her, we need pay attention to the standards of the typical American. Yeah, they can vote by mail. So wouldn't they be just in line with the typical American if they did that too? So, I mean, that's a good question, but ultimately it's because it's a different thing.
It's a conundrum, but Kelley, I'm going to let you have the last word.
I just wanted to say something real quick, quick, because I've been holding my tongue. 65 isn't that old, man. It just isn't. That's
yeah,
all.
but you ain't trying to pop out no kids right now. No, 65 is not that old, and neither is knocking on 50 like me.
Old is always 20 years older than you are. So right now, old to me is 85.
Fair. Well,
the main difference between you and them is that you're on this show, which means, and not even this show specifically, which means that you have a base level of technological understanding. I have seen these people actually not know how to send email.
There you go.
Listen, try to be in
Rob.
customer service and try to tell a senior citizen how to use their cell phone. Oh my God, my college days were triggering. Let me just put it that way. But your days ahead, dear viewer and listener, do not have to be triggering. If you want to listen to more nonprofits, just click here.